Hello everyone, if you're new to my channel, consider liking and subscribing. It will make me feel wonderful if you do that. Thanks. By the way, I also have another Naruto and Luffy fanfiction channel. If you are interested, link is in the description.
The Pirate King's Family by Straw Hatter 1. A series of one-shots following the lives of Monkey D. Luffy, Boa Hancock, and their daughter, Monkey D. Lucy. Adios.
In the heart of Amazon Lily's lush jungles, laughter and chatter filled the air as a group of young Kuja girls engaged in their daily play. Among them, Lucy, with her bright eyes and boundless energy, led the group in their adventures. On this particular day, their exploration took them to a less frequented part of the island, where the dense foliage whispered secrets of untamed wild animals. As they played, a rustling in the bushes caught their attention. The girls paused, their games momentarily forgotten, as they watched a small, curious creature emerge. It was a puppy, unlike any they had seen before, with patches of fur missing, a limp in its step, and a pitiful whimper. Its big, sorrowful eyes looked up at the girls filled with a silent plea for kindness. "Look, she's hurt," Lucy exclaimed, her heart immediately going out to the puppy. Her friends gathered around, their expressions a mix of curiosity and concern. "It doesn't look like any of the dogs we have on the island," one older girl remarked, her nose wrinkled in uncertainty. "I don't think we should touch her. What if she's sick?" another girl remarked. "Your mommy, I mean the Empress, will be mad if she sees you with this thing." Lucy looked down at the puppy, her resolve firm. "But look at her, she's adorable," she insisted, her gaze filled with a warmth and openness that mirrored her father's own way of seeing the world. The puppy, though initially hesitant, seemed to understand that Lucy meant no harm. It snuggled closer to warmth, its tail wagging weakly. "We should take her to Grandma," Lucy decided with a nod. "She'll know what to do." As Lucy and her friends made their way back to the palace, the group was aflutter with chatter and concern. One of the girls tried again to reason with Lucy. "But what if that puppy bites you? You could get sick, what will your mommy say?" Lucy, cradling the puppy more protectively, responded with a mix of naivety and royal authority. "I'm the princess, so it's okay." Another girl, skepticism clear in her tone, retorted, "You always say, 'I'm the princess,' like it means you can do anything." Lucy paused, considering her friend's words, but her determination didn't waver. "Well, it's true, and right now, I'm going to make sure this puppy gets help because that's what my daddy would do. He would have Dr. Chopper help." The girls exchanged looks, some rolling their eyes but all following Lucy's lead. Despite their reservations, they couldn't deny the infectious optimism that Lucy, much like her father, radiated, even when it came to rescuing a scruffy, potentially troublesome puppy. Bursting into the palace, Lucy led her entourage with the puppy still nestled in her arms. They found Elder Nyan in one of the main rooms reading. "Grandma," Lucy called out, excitement evident in her voice as she approached Nyan. "Look what I found, she needs our help." Nyan looked up, her expression shifting from surprise to concern as she noticed the puppy. "Oh, my dear Lucy, what you have got this time?" she asked, her tone gentle but wary. Before Lucy could answer, one of her friends piped up, "Is the Empress back yet? Could we see her?" Lucy shook her head. "No, Mommy will be back in a few days. That's what Grandma said. I can't wait to show her the puppy. She's going to love her, I know it." As Lucy's words filled the room with her optimism about the puppy's acceptance, Elder Nyan interjected, a knowing look in her eyes. "Lucy, you remember what your mother said last time you brought home an animal, don't you? She made an exception for Zephyra, but—" Lucy's excitement waned slightly, her brows furrowing. Without missing a beat, she straightened up, attempting to mimic her mother's stance, one where she seemed to look so far down on someone she was practically looking up. Pointing a small finger towards Nyan with all the seriousness a 4-year-old could muster, she declared, "I can do what I want because I'm a beautiful princess." The room let out a collective sigh, including Nyan. "Hancock, I fear you've taught your dear child some bad habits," she thought to herself. However, she couldn't help but smile. Lucy's attempt at authority was eerily reminiscent of Hancock's own demeanor before meeting Luffy. "You are quite the beautiful princess," Nyan agreed, her tone soft and filled with amusement. "But being a princess also means understanding responsibilities, especially towards those we care for." Lucy's posture softened, her pout evident. "But she's so cute and she needs us. I know Daddy would say yes." Elder Nyan chuckled softly at Lucy's reasoning, the amusement evident in her eyes. Your father might indeed have a hard time saying no to you, but remember, caring for a living being is a big responsibility, Lucy. Lucy's face lit up with an idea as a new wave of determination washed over her. Can we call Daddy? He'll say I can keep her, and then when Mommy is here, she can't say no because Daddy said so. The group of girls around her murmured in agreement, excited by the idea of contacting the Pirate King himself for such a crucial decision. Nyan hesitated for a moment, considering the implications. The idea of consulting Luffy on such matters was unconventional, to say the least. Yet, seeing Lucy's hopeful gaze, she found it hard to outright refuse. All right, my dear. We can try calling your father. However, she added with a stern look that promised no guarantees, you must also agree to respect your mother's decision, regardless of what your father says. Can you do that? Lucy nodded eagerly, the promise slipping out easily. Yes, I promise. Soon after, Nyan led Lucy and her small group of friends to where the transponder snail waited. As they called the Thousand Sunny, Lucy's heart raced with anticipation. After a few moments Luffy's voice came through, although his mouth sounded like it was full of food, as usual. Daddy? Lucy shouted into the phone, startling her father on the other end. Luce? What's up? Is everything okay? Luffy's voice crackled through the line, his tone instantly alert at his daughter's shout. Lucy beamed, clutching the receiver. Hi, Daddy. I found a puppy, and she's really cute but hurt. I want to keep her. Can I please keep her? Her voice was a blend of excitement and a plea, hoping her father's well-known soft heart for her would work in her favor. There was a pause, and then Luffy's laugh echoed through the receiver. A puppy, huh? Well, I don't see why not. You can keep the puppy. As Lucy's excitement bubbled over, another voice suddenly chimed in, calm and measured. Luffy, have you spoken with Hancock about this? Robin's voice was a reminder of the practical considerations at play. Lucy, sweetheart, have you asked your mother? Lucy's face fell slightly, the mention of her mother's approval dampening her spirits momentarily. No, Aunt Robin, she protested softly, a hint of disappointment threading through her voice. But Daddy just said yes. The murmurs among Lucy's friends grew, a mix of whispers barely audible. She always gets her way, one girl mumbled under her breath, not quite envious, not quite resigned. Another added, but even princesses have to listen to their mommies, don't they? Luffy's voice, still warm but now carrying an edge of seriousness, returned. Robin has a point, Luce. We should talk to Hancock about it first. But don't worry, I'll help you, okay? Just call me when your mom gets back. With that, Lucy felt a renewed sense of hope. Maybe, with her father's backing and careful explanation of her intentions, her mother would see the puppy through Lucy's eyes. The thought brought a small smile back to her face as she turned to share her plan with her friends, ready to take on the challenge of convincing the Empress. A few days had passed, and under the attentive care of Nyan, Sonia, and Mari, Patches, the puppy Lucy had named for her distinct, patchy fur, had begun to show signs of recovery. The once timid and frail creature now wagged her tail with a vigor that spoke volumes of her gratitude and growing playful spirit. An Amazon lily, casting a serene glow over the palace, Lucy prepared for bed, her heart set on a request she hoped her guardians wouldn't deny. Surrounded by the comforting presence of Nyan, Sonia, and Mari, Lucy voiced her wish, her eyes gleaming with hope. Can Patches and Zephyr stay in my room tonight, please? The trio exchanged hesitant looks, well aware of the complications that might arise from having both the snake and the puppy in close quarters, especially during the night. However, Lucy's expression, a masterful blend of hope and the slightest hint of a pout, reminiscent of the look her father could never resist, made them reconsider. Nyan, with a sigh, glanced at Sonia and Mari, who both nodded, albeit reluctantly. All right, but only for tonight, Nyan conceded, her tone leaving no room for negotiation, though the softness in her eyes showed her fondness for the young princess. Lucy's face lit up, a bright smile spreading across her features. Thank you, Grandma. Thank you, Aunt Sonia, Aunt Mari, she exclaimed, clapping her hands together in joy as Zephyr slithered comfortably onto her designated spot, and Patches, with a little help, climbed onto the bed, settling beside Lucy. As they tucked Lucy in, surrounded by her beloved companions, the room filled with a sense of peace and contentment. "Remember, Lucy, they're your responsibility," Mari gently reminded, her words carrying a hint of wisdom and care. Lucy nodded solemnly, understanding the weight of her promise. "I will, Aunt Mari. I'll take good care of them," she affirmed, her voice carrying the sincerity of her commitment. With one final check to ensure Lucy and her unconventional bedmates were settled for the night, Nyan, Sonia, and Mari stepped out of the room, leaving the door ajar just enough to keep an eye on the young princess. As they retreated, they shared a smile, a silent acknowledgement of the joy and chaos that Patches and Zephyra had brought into their lives, and most importantly, into Lucy's heart. As night deepened around Amazon Lily, the perfume Yuda was making its return. The island, bathed in moonlight, welcomed Boa Hancock. Mari and Sonia awaited her, their usual smiles in place at the sight of their older sister. "Have there been any issues in my absence?" Hancock's voice, though gentle, carried the weight of her responsibility as both a leader and protector. Sonia quickly assured her, "The island has been peaceful, sister." Hancock's next question came with a hint of urgency, a mother's concern threading through her composed demeanor. "And Lucy?" Mary's smile was warm as she responded, "Lucy has been well, full of energy and curiosity as always. She's asleep now, she's had a very eventful last few days." The mention of Lucy's adventures caught Hancock's interest, but she held back her curiosity for a moment, focusing instead on the well-being of her island. "Good. And the preparations for our next voyage? I would like to take Lucy on this one as it's not a long trip." "Yes, everything is on schedule," Sonia replied. "The island has been looking forward to your return." Satisfied with the reports of stability and progress, Hancock allowed herself a small sigh of relief. Yet, the mother in her lingered on thoughts of Lucy, her imagination painting pictures of what adventures her daughter might have embarked on. "Did Lucy obey you both? And she hasn't brought home any more hideous creatures, has she?" Hancock asked, half joking, recalling past instances of Lucy's boundless compassion leading to impromptu animal rescues. Both sisters exchanged a glance, a silent agreement passing between them to leave the story of Patches for a more opportune moment. "Lucy has been the perfect princess," Mari assured, her tone leaving no room for doubt. "Elder Nyan has been keeping a close watch, ensuring her safety and adherence to the rules." Hancock nodded, the corners of her mouth turning up in a soft smile at the mention of her daughter's well-being. "I look forward to spending the day with her tomorrow. For now, I will retire for the evening. It's been a long journey." As they walked back to the palace, Hancock's heart, though weary from travel, felt lighter with each step towards the heart of Amazon Lily, towards home, and most importantly, towards Lucy. The Empress of Amazon Lily was back, not just as a ruler but as a mother eager to embrace her daughter. The soft hues of dawn had barely begun to seep through the elegant curtains of Hancock's chamber when whispers of her return danced through the corridors of the palace. Lucy, awake and ready to play, had intended to sneak an early morning snack for herself and her beloved companions, Patches and Zephyra. However, the hushed voices of the Kuja warriors redirected her morning adventure directly to her mother's room. With Patches trotting loyally beside her and Zephyra coiled around her, Lucy tiptoed towards the grand doors of Hancock's room. Salome, ever watchful and surprisingly indulgent of Lucy's whims, noticed the trio's approach. With a gentle nudge of her tail, she helped Lucy and then Patches onto the bed, a silent conspirator in the child's plan to surprise her mother. As Patches excitedly scampered across the bed, unable to contain her joy at discovering this new, intriguing landscape, she found her way to Hancock's face, greeting her with enthusiastic licks. "No, Patches, you can't do that," Lucy whispered urgently, her voice a mix of amusement and concern for interrupting her mother's rest. Hancock stirred, her eyes fluttering open to a sight she hadn't anticipated. A puppy enthusiastically covering her face in kisses, and her daughter, with a mix of apprehension and excitement, trying to manage the lively scene. The Empress's initial reaction was one of surprise, morphing quickly into a frown of disapproval at the unexpected wake-up call. Lucy's joy faltered under her mother's gaze, a shadow of fear crossing her features at the prospect of her mother's anger towards Patches. "I'm sorry, Mommy, I didn't know she would do that," she said quickly, trying to change her mother's attitude. Sensing her daughter's distress, Hancock's gaze softened, She reached out, drawing Lucy into her lap with a tenderness that belied her stern reputation. "Mari, Sonia," she called out, her voice carrying the command of the Empress as she looked down at Patches. "Dispose of this wretched animal at once." Before Hancock could shoo the puppy off the bed, Lucy's reaction was immediate. She wrapped her small arms protectively around Patches, a silent plea in her eyes that said more than words ever could. Hancock hesitated at the determination in Lucy's grip on Patches. The way her daughter looked at her with a mix of hope and defiance mirrored so much of what she loved in Luffy. The doors opened softly, revealing Mari and Sonia, who paused at the sight before them. It wasn't often they saw their sister in such a domestic scene. Nor did they expect to be greeted by the puppy in their sister's bed. Hancock's expression was stern as she regarded her sisters, the presence of the puppy still a point of contention. "Mari, Sonia, remove this animal," she instructed once more, her tone leaving no room for negotiation. But Lucy, determination in her young eyes, slid off her mother's lap, clutching Patches closely to her chest. "But Daddy said I could keep Patches," she exclaimed. The defiance in her voice gave Hancock pause. Hancock's eyebrow arched, a silent question directed at her sisters. "Is this true?" she asked, her gaze sharp. Before Mari or Sonia could respond, Lucy added, "And Grandma said so, too." Hancock murmured under her breath, "The old hag," as she started to rise, intent on confronting Elder Nyan about this unexpected development. But her movement was halted by Mari and Sonia's assurances. "Sister," Elder Nyan mentioned that Lucy must follow whatever decision you make. "If you decide the puppy cannot stay, then Lucy has agreed to obey," Sonia explained, hoping to ease the tension in the room. Lucy's reaction was immediate. She darted off the bed with Salamit wrapped her small arms around her mother's legs, a physical plea. "If Patches can't stay, then I want to go live wherever Patches lives," she said, her voice quivering with the threat of tears. Hancock, still weary from her journey, pinched the bridge of her nose in exasperation. She sighed deeply, a sign that Lucy recognized all too well. Looking up, Lucy saw the fatigue etched on her mother's face and knew her resolve was weakening. "Can someone bring me the mini transponder snail?" Hancock finally said, her request surprising the room. "I need to speak with Luffy about this." As Sonia hurried off to fetch the requested transponder snail, Lucy released her grip on her mother's legs but remained close, her eyes wide with a mix of hope and apprehension. Moments later, the mini transponder snail was brought into the room, and Hancock reached out to Luffy. The waiting was tense, with every ring of the transponder snail stretching longer than the last. Finally, Luffy's cheerful voice filled the room, thinking Lucy was calling him again. "Hey, Luce. What's up? How's the puppy? Have you told your mom yet?" Hancock took a deep breath, trying to keep her composure. "Darling, so you did give Lucy permission to keep a puppy?" she asked, each word measured. Luffy's laughter boomed through the transponder. "Oh, hey, Hancock. Yeah, I did." Lucy sounded so happy about it. "Why? Is there a problem?" Hancock's voice held a touch of exasperation as she responded. "I've told Lucy before that after Zephra, she cannot keep any more animals. You and I later agreed she was responsible enough for her snake, and that was it." There was a brief pause on the other end before Luffy's voice came through, slightly more subdued. "Oh yeah. Well, I did kinda tell her that we could talk about it when you got back." Hancock continued, "She found this thing, and now she's insisting on keeping it because you said yes without talking to me." Her gaze shifted as she looked down at Lucy, whose pout deepened at the recounting of her plea to keep Patches. Luffy's voice now held a touch of concern. "I just wanted her to be happy, but you're right, Hancock. We should have talked about it first. I'm sorry. Do you think we could make this a special case though? You know, 'cause it's my fault for getting her hopes up?" Lucy perked up at her father's suggestion, her eyes glimmering with a mixture of hope and mischief, clearly not ready to give up on her new friend just yet. Hancock sighed, pinching the bridge of her nose again as she deliberated. "Fine. That animal can stay, but this is an exception, not a precedent," she stated firmly, ensuring her stance was clear to not just Lucy but to Luffy as well. "Understood. Can I talk to Lucy?" Luffy's voice took on a firmer tone as Hancock held the transponder snail out for Lucy. "You need to listen to your mom, okay? If she makes any decisions about your dog, then you need to do what she says." Lucy, sensing the compromise, unfolded her arms and nodded, her earlier pout replaced by a wide, grateful smile. "Okay, Daddy, I promise I'll take good care of Patches, and I'll listen to Mommy." Hancock, despite the early morning disruption, couldn't help but smile at her daughter's enthusiasm and Luffy's attempt to make amends. "Thank you, darling. We love you," she said softly, acknowledging the compromise they'd reached as a family. "I love you guys too. Let me know if you need any help with Patches, Luce," Luffy added cheerfully before ending the call, leaving Hancock and Lucy in silence. "Mari, Sonia, can you please leave Lucy and I alone for a moment?" Hancock said as she kept her focus on her daughter who is once again clutching her puppy. Mari and Sonia exchanged glances, a mixture of amusement and relief in their eyes, before nodding and exiting the room, leaving Hancock and Lucy to their private conversation. Hancock walked back to her bed and sat down, her expression softening as she pulled Lucy onto her lap. Before she could broach the topic of responsibility and caring for Patches, Lucy wrapped her tiny arms around her mother's neck and hugged her tightly. "I missed you, Mommy," Lucy whispered, her voice muffled against Hancock's neck, "and thank you for letting me keep Patches." Hancock, taken aback by the sudden show of affection, allowed herself a moment to just hold her daughter close. The weeks of separation from Lucy weighed heavily on her heart, and this moment of reunion melted away the Empress's usual stoic demeanor. "I missed you too, my love," Hancock murmured, pressing a kiss to Lucy's head. After a few moments, Hancock gently pulled back to look Lucy in the eyes. "Lucy, I'm glad you're happy, but keeping Patches means you'll have to take care of her properly," Hancock began, her tone serious. Lucy nodded eagerly, her attention fully on her mother. "I'll do everything, Mommy." Hancock continued, laying out the terms clearly. "You need to play with Patches, feed her yourself without asking the other Kuja or your friends for help, and make sure she gets plenty of exercise. This has to be consistent, Lucy. If you miss doing any of these things even once, then we will have to find another home for Patches." Lucy's eyes widened at the conditions, but the determination in her heart was undeterred. "I promise, Mommy, I'll take the best care of Patches, you'll see." Hancock studied her daughter's face, the earnestness in her eyes. She knew Lucy had inherited her father's boundless enthusiasm and her own fierce determination. "All right, Lucy. I trust you to keep your promise," Hancock said. Lucy, satisfied with the agreement, hugged her mother once more before hopping off her lap, Patches now following closely behind. "Come on, Patches. Let's go show you your new home," Lucy chirped, her spirits lifted and her heart full. As Lucy bounded out of the room, Hancock watched her go, a smile creeping onto her lips. The formidable pirate empress felt a warmth in her heart, a reminder of the love that tied their family together. Over the next few days, the palace of Amazon Lily buzzed with a new kind of energy, all thanks to a small puppy named Patches and the little princess who adored her. Elder Nyan, Mari, and Sonia found amusement in the subtle changes within their empress, particularly her relationship with the newest, furriest member of the household. While Hancock maintained a certain level of disdain for the disorder Patches brought into their palace, her icy demeanor would thaw in an instant whenever Lucy was around, her joy infectious. The others couldn't help but chuckle at the sight, whispering jokes about how the formidable Empress of Amazon Lily could be so easily swayed by her daughter's happiness. One particularly cute incident unfolded when Hancock was preparing for her bath, a time she cherished for its tranquility and solitude. As she stepped into the bath, ready to immerse herself in the warm, fragrant water, Lucy appeared at the door, Patches in her arms, wearing a hopeful grin. "Mommy, can Patches have a bath too? She's dirty," Lucy announced, her big eyes gleaming with excitement at the thought of sharing this moment with her puppy. Hancock, caught off guard by the request, hesitated. Her first instinct was to refuse, to preserve the sanctity of her relaxation time. However, looking down at Lucy's eager face, and the puppy that seemed just as enthusiastic, her resolve wavered. "All right," Hancock sighed, her expression softening. "But she gets her own bath. I don't want her in here with us when we're done cleaning her, understood?" Lucy's excitement bubbled over as she nodded vigorously, promising to be the best bath assistant. As they carefully washed Patches in a smaller bath, splashing gently and laughing at the puppy's playful attempts to catch the water, Hancock found herself enjoying the moment more than she'd expected. Mari and Sonia, standing guard at the door, peeked in to witness the heartwarming scene. They exchanged knowing looks, their amusement clear. Later, they would recount the tale to Elder Nyan, who laughed heartily, remarking, "Who were fierce empress, softened by a child and her puppy." After weeks of adjusting to life with Patches, Hancock found herself unexpectedly fond of the puppy's presence. The once disdained creature had wormed its way into her heart. It was a quiet evening, the palace bathed in the soft glow of twilight. Hancock sat in her favorite garden enjoying the rare silence that enveloped Amazon Lily. Lucy, with Patches trailing behind her, found her mother in the garden. "Mommy, look, Patches learned a new trick," she exclaimed, her voice bubbling with excitement. Hancock looked to her daughter, her interest piqued, a smile tugging at her lips. With a command from Lucy, Patches clumsily attempted to roll over, causing both Lucy and Hancock to laugh. It was a simple moment, but Hancock grew to cherish these moments no matter how big or small. Hancock opened her arms, inviting both Lucy and Patches into a warm embrace. "You've done a wonderful job with her, Lucy," she praised, her voice soft and filled with genuine affection. "I'm proud of you." Lucy beamed, snuggling closer to her mother. Patches contentedly nestled in their hug. "I love you, Mommy. And I think Patches loves you too." As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden hue over the scene, Hancock realized that this, the laughter of her daughter, the warmth of their embrace, and even the joyful yips of Patches, was everything she could ever need. On a radiant afternoon aboard the Thousand Sunny, the air was alive with the joyous sounds of the Straw Hat Pirates. They were immersed in their usual revelry after their recent triumph in Wano, with their spirits high and laughter echoing across the sea. Luffy was particularly elated, showcasing a broad, infectious smile as he tackled an impressive heap of meat and was ecstatic over his recent bounty increase. In the midst of this festivity, a subtle shift occurred with the arrival of Roronoa Robin. She stepped into the lively gathering, a piece of paper clutched in her hands. She moved with purpose towards Luffy, who was deeply engrossed in his feast, and gently cleared her throat, a signal that caught his attention. "Luffy," she initiated, her voice a strained calm, "there's something important you need to know." Her tone caused Luffy's gaze to be torn away from his meal and towards the seriousness of her expression. "What's going on, Robin?" he questioned, his tone shifting to match the gravity he sensed from her. Carefully, Robin unfolded the paper, exposing the contents of a message delivered by a news coup. A hush fell over the crew as they gathered around, eager and anxious to learn of the news that warranted such a sudden change in atmosphere. An assault on Amazon Lily, an island under the dominion of Empress Boa Hancock, who, unbeknownst to the world, was Luffy's wife. Luffy's features hardened as he absorbed the content, his joy replaced by a storm of concern and fury. "What's happened?" he shouted, his voice laced with urgency. Robin exchanged a meaningful look with Luffy, her eyes mirroring the seriousness of the situation. "It appears the Marines launched an attack on the island after disbanding the warlords. There's been no word on the fate of Hancock, her sisters, or her pregnancy," she trailed off, imagining how Hancock must be feeling, if her friend is all right. The crew's demeanor transformed in an instant, from lighthearted to somber, as worry for the island and its inhabitants took precedence. Luffy's mind raced with thoughts of Hancock, her safety paramount among them. "Which Marines are behind this?" Zoro interjected, his hand instinctively gravitating towards the hilts of his swords, ready for battle. Robin reviewed the note once more, searching for any clues. The specifics of the attacking force are unclear, and it seems Amazon Lily's means of communication have been severed. Luffy's fist struck the table with such force that it broke in half. His eyes, now filled with resolve, showed his determination. "We're setting course for Amazon Lily immediately," he declared, his decision unwavering. Nami interjected with caution. "We need a clear understanding of what we're facing before making any hasty decisions." Acknowledging Nami's words, Robin agreed. "She's right, Luffy. It's crucial we gather more information before embarking on this rescue." Despite the storm of emotions raging within him, Luffy understood the necessity of a careful approach. However, his heart wanted the immediate safeguarding of Hancock and her home. Zoro stepped up beside Luffy and put a hand on his shoulder. "We'll make sure you're with Hancock soon, Luffy, she's strong." With a heavy heart but a fortified spirit, Luffy nodded in agreement. Nothing else will happen to them on my watch. As the crew began their urgent preparation, Luffy was filled with a deep sense of unease. The well-being of Amazon Lily and, more importantly, Hancock, weighed heavily on his mind, fueling his resolve to navigate the impending challenges. The once serene island of Amazon Lily bore the scars of an unwarranted attack. The aftermath left its inhabitants in a state of shock and disarray, the air filled with the scent of healing herbs and the soft murmur of prayers for the wounded. Among those fighting for recovery was Boa Hancock, who had stood valiantly against the onslaught led by Blackbeard and the Marines. However, the physical toll from the battle had caused a crisis far beyond the scope of any external wounds. Hancock, in her 8th month of pregnancy, was now in early labor, a dire consequence of the stress and injuries she had endured. The makeshift medical ward, a sanctuary of healing, was filled with urgent activity as the island's best healers and midwives convened around her. The air was thick with tension, the gravity of the situation weighing heavily on every heart present as the Empress went through what seemed like hours of agonizing labor. Finally, another cry pierced the air, not of pain, but of new life. Hancock had given birth to a baby girl. The moment was bittersweet. While the birth of Lucy symbolized hope and a new beginning, the shadow of uncertainty loomed large. The child, born prematurely, was fragile, her little chest rising and falling with great effort. The medical team worked tirelessly, their faces etched with concern as they monitored Lucy's vitals, which were far from stable. Lucy, swaddled in a soft blanket, her tiny features reminiscent of her mother, fought for every breath under the watchful eyes of the healers. They moved with a sense of urgency, yet their hands were gentle, their touch imbued with the warmth of healing and the strength of their resolve to protect the new life of their island's princess from all odds. Outside, as night fell, the vibrant island, usually filled with the laughter and strength of its inhabitants, was quiet, the tension of the situation threading through the very air. Yet, in this hushed anticipation, there was unity, a shared breath held by all as they awaited news. Hancock yearned to see her newborn. Her mind, though fogged with exhaustion and pain, was focused on her daughter. She could barely lift her head, her limbs heavy, but her spirit was filled with a fierce maternal instinct. "Please," she whispered, her voice barely audible, "I need to see my baby, I need to know she's all right." Mari and Sonia, Hancock's devoted sisters, stood by her side, their eyes filled with a mix of admiration and worry. They had never seen their sister in such a vulnerable and weak state, yet her concern for her child was paramount. "Big sis, you need to rest," Mari gently urged, brushing a lock of hair from Hancock's forehead. "They're doing everything they can for Lucy. She's a fighter, just like her mother." Sonia nodded in agreement, her voice soothing. "Let's give them some time. You'll see her soon, we promise. Right now, you need to recover your strength." Outside, the island's inhabitants continued to gather, their faces full of hope and anxiety. News of the Empress's early labor and the baby's precarious health had spread quickly, uniting everyone in a silent vigil. Prayers and well wishes were whispered into the night, a collective plea for the safety of both mother and child. As the hours ticked by, the situation inside the medical hut remained tense. The doctors, a mix of Amazon warriors skilled in the art of healing, worked with unwavering focus. Their hands moved with precision, administering herbal remedies and medicine along with monitoring Lucy's condition closely. Despite their efforts, Lucy's health was a pendulum, swinging between moments of stability and bouts of distress. Hancock, despite her exhaustion, refused to succumb to sleep. Her thoughts were a whirlwind, oscillating between concern for Lucy and a deep-seated desire for Luffy's presence and his strength. The thought of him brought a flicker of strength, a reminder of the love that had brought Lucy into this world. A few weeks later, the dawn brought with it a cautious optimism. Lucy, under the constant, meticulous care of the healers, showed signs of improvement. Her breathing, though still labored at times, had steadied, and her vitals began to stabilize. It was a small victory, but a victory nonetheless. Hancock, finally allowed to hold her daughter without fear of her health diving, felt a surge of emotions. Lucy, so tiny and yet so fiercely alive, was a testament to their strength and resilience. Tears of joy and relief streamed down Hancock's cheeks as she whispered protection to her daughter. As the Straw Hat Pirates neared Amazon Lily, the island's vigilant Kuja warriors spotted the approaching ship. One of them swiftly made her way to the makeshift medical hut where tension and hope hung in the air like a thick fog. Bursting through the door, she announced, "Empress, a ship approaches our shores." Before panic could set in, another Kuja, breathless from her sprint, followed, exclaiming, "It's the Thousand Sunny." Hancock felt a surge of relief and anticipation at the news. Her heart, which had been heavy with concern for her newborn and the fear of the unknown, now fluttered with the prospect of Luffy's arrival. Despite her exhaustion from orchestrating cleanup and construction of the island, a faint smile graced her lips, a mixture of love, relief, and an anxious eagerness to reunite with him. As Luffy flung himself off Sunny to make his way to the island, he was intercepted at the shore by Elder Nyan. The elderly woman stood waiting for him, her expression solemn. "Luffy, thank goodness you've come," Elder Nyan began, her voice carrying the weight of the situation. "It's been a difficult time for Hancock." Luffy's eyes widened, his heart caught between a whirlwind of emotions. "Is Hancock okay? Where is she?" Elder Nyan sensed all the emotions flowing through Luffy. "She's a fighter, your Hancock. But she needs you now, more than ever. Your baby. Your daughter, she's a precious little thing, born a fighter too." My daughter?" Without a moment's hesitation, Luffy turned back, calling out for Chopper with a voice that left no room for argument. "Chopper, Chopper, we need you." Chopper, who had been preparing medical supplies aboard the Sunny, heard the urgency in Luffy's voice and understood the gravity of the call. With his medical bag in tow, he rushed to Luffy's side, ready to lend his skills and heart to the situation. Recognizing the scale of the disaster that had struck Amazon Lily, Luffy knew that the strength of his crew and the resilience of the Kuja warriors would be essential in the island's recovery. Before darting off with Chopper, he turned to his crew, his voice carrying both command and a plea for unity. "Everyone else, I need you all to work with Granny, Mari and Sonia. Help with the construction and cleanup. We need to make this place safe and strong again." His crew, ever loyal and ready to support their captain and his family, nodded in agreement, their faces set with determination. "You got it, Luffy," they chorused, each member ready to lend their unique skills to the effort. The journey to the medical hut was filled with tension, but Luffy's resolve never wavered. He knew that beyond the fear and uncertainty lay the heart of his world. Hancock and their daughter, waiting for him, a beacon calling him home. As he burst through the door, his eyes immediately found Hancock and, in her arms, wrapped in a soft blanket, was a tiny, peaceful figure. Luffy's world came to a standstill, his fears momentarily suspended as the realization dawned upon him. His wife was all right, and they had a daughter. His eyes, wide with astonishment and joy, met Hancock's, and in that gaze, a multitude of emotions passed between them: love, relief, and a shared wonder at the life they had created. Hancock, seeing Luffy's expression transform from fear to awe, quietly said, "Luffy, meet our daughter, Monkey D. Lucy." Her voice, though tired, was filled with a pride and tenderness that resonated deeply with Luffy. Luffy approached, his usual confidence replaced with a hesitance born of awe and a newfound sense of responsibility. Standing before Hancock and their daughter, he felt a wave of emotions he had never known before: happiness, relief, and an overwhelming sense of protectiveness. Behind Luffy, Chopper wore an expression of professional concern mixed with heartfelt relief. He was ready to offer his skills and support, yet he couldn't help but be moved by the scene before him. Can I hold her?" Luffy's voice was a mere breath, his gaze fixed on the tiny bundle in Hancock's arms. The fear of harming her with his untested hands was palpable in his eyes. Hancock nodded, a gentle smile on her lips, understanding Luffy's fear and cherishing the vulnerability he showed. "Yes, but be gentle, dear. She's been fighting hard," she guided, her voice as soft in the quiet of the hut. As Luffy carefully took Lucy into his arms, the world seemed to hold its breath. The sight of the fierce pirate captain, now cradling his daughter with a gentleness and care that belied his powerful yet carefree exterior, was a testament to the transformative power of love and family. Suddenly, one of the midwives approached, her steps quiet. "Luffy, sir," she began, her voice gentle but carrying an underlying note of authority, "it's time for us to conduct a few more tests on Lucy. We need to ensure she's gaining strength. We'll just look over her briefly and then she will be back with both you and the Empress." Luffy's brow furrowed, confusion and reluctance showing on his face. "But why can't I keep holding her while you look at her?" he asked, his voice filled with a protective edge, the very notion of being separated from Lucy, even for a moment, filling him with an unfamiliar anxiety. The midwife offered a reassuring smile. "We just need to make sure she's responding well to treatment. We'll bring her back to you as soon as we're done, I promise." Gently, with practiced ease, she removed Lucy from Luffy's reluctant arms, her touch delicate. In that moment, Chopper stepped forward, his medical bag in hand, ready to accompany Lucy. "Luffy, I'll go with Lucy. We'll take great care of her, you have my word," Chopper said. As Chopper left, Luffy quickly made his way to sit with Hancock, who leaned into him, her head resting on his shoulder. "So, what happened? Who did this to you? I will kick their." Hancock gently interrupted, her voice quiet. "After revoking my warlord status, the Marines attacked. Then soon after, Blackbeard came after me, seeking my power." Luffy stiffened, his anger deepening with her words. "He targeted me when I was already vulnerable. I was just trying to protect our baby," she murmured, her tone barely louder than a whisper as she thought back to the tragic scene. Luffy's hands clenched into fists, his anger boiling over as Hancock continued. "The injuries I sustained from the attack forced me into early labor. That's why I'm still here. I refuse to leave Lucy's side. She's been fighting hard and I must admit it's been very challenging over the last few weeks to not give up." Luffy, his anger momentarily subdued by the exhaustion in his wife's voice, nodded in understanding. Then, as if struck by a sudden thought, his expression shifted from fury to determination. "We can move you and Lucy to the Sunny. Chopper can take care of you both," he declared, the resolve in his voice unwavering. Hancock, touched by Luffy's immediate willingness to protect and provide, managed a weak smile. "Thank you, Luffy. That would mean everything to me." Despite the chaos that had brought them to this point, the promise of safety and care under Luffy's unwavering commitment offered a beacon of hope. Together, they awaited the return of their daughter, each second apart stretching long but filled with the promise of reunion and the beginning of a new chapter as a family. In the serene embrace of the early evening, the Thousand Sunny lay anchored in a sheltered bay, its presence a silent vow of protection to those it harbored. Alongside the usual array of medical instruments and supplies, a new addition graced the space, a beautifully crafted crib, courtesy of Frankie. This crib, a labor of love, was adorned with intricate carvings that told tales of the sea, the sun, and the unbreakable bond of the Straw Hat Pirates. It stood as a beacon of the crew's collective effort to welcome their newest, smallest member, Monkey D. Lucy. As dusk turned the sky into a canvas of purples and oranges, Chopper finished his final checks over Lucy in hand, resting comfortably, her strength slowly returning in the safety of the Sunny's walls. Luffy sat by her side, his usual restlessness replaced by a profound sense of contentment and an unspoken gratitude for the peace that had settled over his family. "Everything looks great," Chopper announced with a professional nod, addressing Luffy and Hancock. "Lucy's strong, and Hancock, you're recovering well, too. Just make sure to rest and eat properly." Luffy, whose gaze had hardly left the tiny form of Lucy, turned towards Chopper, his expression a mix of gratitude and awe. "Thanks, Chopper. You're the best," he said, his voice filled with emotion. Chopper, embarrassed by the praise, waved a hoof dismissively. "I'm just doing my job. You all make sure to call me if anything changes, okay? I'll be right outside if you need me." With those final words, Chopper exited the bay, leaving the small family. As night deepened, the medical bay became a private sanctuary for the family. Luffy, ever so gently, lifted Lucy from her crib, cradling her with a tenderness that belied his usual exuberance. Hancock watched, a mix of love and amusement in her eyes as Luffy fumbled slightly, his large hands awkward yet so careful around their daughter. "Hey, Lucy, it's me, your dad," Luffy whispered, his voice barely above a breath. "You'll get to see me become king of the pirates." Hancock offered a weary smile, the exhaustion of the recent weeks manifesting in the soft lines of her face. With her husband by her side, a sense of relief washed over her, allowing her to finally let her guard down and embrace a moment of rest. "I can't believe I'm a dad," Luffy said, his voice a mixture of wonder and resolve. "I want to show Lucy the whole world." "And we will," Hancock assured him, her voice steady, "together, when she's ready." Luffy nodded and smiled, noticing Hancock's eyes getting heavy. You can sleep, you know. Lucy and I aren't going anywhere, and the crew and I will make sure she's perfectly safe." Acknowledging Luffy's concern with a nod, Hancock tried to settle back into the bed, but her discomfort with this new bed didn't go unnoticed by Luffy. "What's wrong, Hancock?" he inquired, carefully placing Lucy back into her crib and moving closer to Hancock. "It's just, I do miss my bed," Hancock admitted, her voice sounding almost apologetic as she didn't want to sound ungrateful to Luffy. "But this is okay. I'm just happy to be here with you and Lucy." "Do you need me to get Frankie to build you another bed?" Luffy offered, ready to solve any problem that might affect Hancock's comfort. Shaking her head, Hancock softly requested, Could you just stay close to me tonight?" Without hesitation, Luffy squeezed into the bed beside her, though the space was tight. "Is this all right?" he asked, searching for a comfortable position for both of them. Then, as if struck by an idea, he gently repositioned Hancock, so her back was nestled against his chest, allowing him to wrap her in his arms. "Is this better?" Hancock, still easily flustered by actions like this, found immediate comfort in Luffy's embrace and nodded her approval. In the quiet that settled over them, just before the veil of sleep could claim them entirely, Luffy found himself caught in a moment of reflection. The warmth of Hancock pressed against him made his thoughts louder rather than quieter. "Hey, Hancock," Luffy began, his voice uncharacteristically soft, "I've been thinking, I'm really glad you and Lucy are okay. When Robin told me what happened, He trailed off, the weight of his emotions making it hard to find the right words. Hancock shifted slightly in his embrace, sensing the depth of his feelings. "Luffy, I know," she whispered back, her voice steady. "It was terrifying, but we're both okay now. We feel safe now that you're here." Luffy tightened his embrace, a mix of relief and unresolved guilt swirling within him. "I just wish I could have been here sooner. I hate thinking about you being in danger and I can't do anything to help. What if something happened to you? I wasn't here." There was a long pause, where only the sound of the sea outside filled the silence between them as Luffy thought about his dream of becoming king of the pirates and fear of losing his family. "I will still be the king of the pirates," Luffy continued, "but I don't want to miss out on being with you and Lucy." Hancock turned in his arms, now facing him, her eyes shining in the moonlight filtering through the window. The closeness of their faces made her heart flutter, a familiar warmth spreading across her cheeks. "Luffy, I fell in love with you knowing who you are," she said softly, her voice carrying a strength that belied her flustered state. "Your dream and determination to achieve it is one of the reasons I love you. We'll find a way to make it all work, together." "Thanks, Hancock," he said, smiling widely now. "You're right, we'll figure it out." Hancock, caught up in the moment, couldn't resist the surge of affection she felt for the man beside her. She leaned forward, closing the small distance between them, and gently pressed her lips to Luffy's in a tender kiss as the love she felt for him made her heart feel like it was about to burst. Moments later, she pulled back slightly as her eyes met his. "Yes, we will," she whispered. With that, they settled back into their previous position, Luffy's arms securely around Hancock, who finally felt the tension of the past weeks dissipate and allowed sleep to claim her. Content that he could provide this comfort, Luffy kissed the back of her head, a silent promise of his unwavering support, before drifting off to sleep beside her. Eventually Luffy's sleep began to shift as the night wore on, causing his mind to journey down a darker path, one filled with fears and traumas that lingered. In the nightmare, the world around him was distorted, a surreal landscape that twisted and turned with the chaos of his fears. Luffy found himself standing what seemed like an insurmountable distance from Hancock, who at first was standing alone. The land was slowly crumbling around her into the sea, her calls beckoning him to help her. Directly behind her, shrouded in a dark aura, Blackbeard appeared, his presence menacing and overpowering. Luffy ran towards Hancock, his heart pounding with desperation, but no matter how fast he moved, she seemed to be further away. The ground beneath him turned into quicksand, slowing him, pulling him down as Blackbeard grabbed Hancock with a malevolent grin. Luffy quickly found himself in an unfamiliar, bleak place, devoid of color and warmth. After what felt like hours of calling out and searching for Hancock, she appeared before him, almost lifeless. Next to her was a familiar figure Luffy never thought he'd see again, his brother Ace, whose eyes were filled with sorrow and accusation. "Why didn't you come sooner, Luffy? You should have been here." You could have stopped this." Hancock's voice was a whisper, but the accusation spoke volumes, cutting him deep. Ace's gaze was heavy with disappointment. "You couldn't save us, Luffy. Why do you keep making these promises to protect people when you can't?" The words were like chains, tightening around Luffy's heart with guilt and pain. He tried to speak, to explain, to apologize, but no sound came out. His voice was lost, drowned out by the crushing weight of his perceived failures. Suddenly, Luffy jerked awake, his breath coming in hard, ragged gasps, a cold sweat drenching his skin. The remnants of the nightmare clung to him, a visceral echo of fear and sorrow that took a moment to fade. The transition from the terror of his dream to the reality of the darkened room was disorienting, his heart still racing from the imagined loss. After the terror of the nightmare began to fade away, it left Luffy with a mind that was too troubled to fall asleep again. He quietly disentangled himself from Hancock and slipped out of the bed as to not wake her, the need to clear his head pressed down on him. As he stepped onto the decide enveloped him, a stark contrast to the thoughts in his mind that wouldn't seem to quiet. Hancock, feeling the absence of warmth beside her, waited a few moments before curiosity and concern led her to follow Luffy. As she reached the deck, she paused, staying hidden in the shadows as she noticed Luffy and Zoro engaging in conversation. "Why aren't you sleeping in your room with Robin and Livy?" Luffy's voice was filled with exhaustion and curiosity. Zoro, leaning against a railing, looked up towards the crow's nest before answering. "Olivia's restless in her sleep tonight. Keeps kicking Robin and me awake. Thought I'd let them have more space in the bed to sleep and I would try to catch some sleep in the crow's nest." He paused as he turned to look to his captain. "What about you? What's got you up and wandering around?" Luffy was silent for a moment, the weight of his worries pressing down on him once again. "Had a nightmare," he finally admitted, his voice barely above a whisper, filled with the residual unease that the dream had stirred within him. "It was about Hancock and losing her. Ace, he was there too," Luffy continued, the words coming out in a rush. "It felt so real. I couldn't save them." He paused as he made eye contact with Zoro. "How has Robin gotten over her nightmares?" Zoro's gaze softened at the mention of his wife and the struggles she had faced. It was true, Robin had her own demons. Nightmares born from a past riddled with loss and betrayal. Yet, over the years, she had found ways to cope, to heal. She finds strength in us, in what we have together as a crew and as a family. He pushed off from the railing, standing straight as he considered his next words. "She also talks about it, you know, not all the time, but when it gets too much, she knows I'm there for her. She trusts me so she knows she can let it out instead of letting it eat away at her. Maybe that's something you need to do more. It's okay to open up, especially to someone like Hancock. I mean, she's your wife." Luffy listened, the tension in his shoulders easing slightly with Zoro's words. It was a simple suggestion, but it seemed to resonate. The idea of sharing his fears, rather than shouldering them alone, was foreign but comforting. "It's just hard, you know. I don't want to worry anyone, especially Hancock," Luffy admitted, his gaze dropping to the deck. "I mean, we talked earlier about it, but it still didn't seem to help." "That's the thing, Luffy. Our wives worry because they care," Zoro replied, clapping a hand on Luffy's shoulder. "Just like you'd worry for her. It's part of being a family. We face things together, not alone. That's also not a one-and-done kind of talk you can have with someone either. She's gone through something hard, and it scared her and obviously it scared you too, so you'll have to talk about it more than once." Luffy nodded, a faint smile breaking through his concerns. "Thanks, Zoro. I'll try talking to Hancock more about it." Zoro gave a nod before a yawn broke through his stoic facade, reminding them both of the late hour. "We should try to get some sleep. Tomorrow's another day of rebuilding the island." With that, Zoro made his way to the crow's nest, leaving Luffy to think about his words. Hancock, having listened from the shadows, felt a wave of gratitude for her husband's crew. Their strength and unity were sources of immense comfort and support. She thought over everything Luffy had said as she made her way back into the medical bay to lay down before Luffy spotted her. Soon after, Luffy made his way back to the room, his steps lighter than before. He found Hancock pretending to be asleep, understanding her need to give him space to process his thoughts. Sliding into bed beside her, Luffy wrapped his arms around her once again, pulling her close. "Hancock," he whispered, breaking the silence. "I need to talk to you about something." Hancock turned in his arms, her eyes meeting his in the dim light. The concern in his eyes prompted her to shift closer, signaling her readiness to listen. "What's wrong?" she asked, her voice soft. Luffy took a deep breath, Zoro's words echoing in his mind, reminding him of the importance of sharing, of not carrying his burdens alone. "I had a nightmare," he began, his voice a mix of vulnerability and strength. "It was about losing you and not being able to do anything to save you." The admission hung heavy in the air, a confession of his deepest fears. Hancock's heart sank at his words. She reached up, resting her hand on his cheek. "Luffy, it's okay to be scared. It shows how much you care, but remember you're not in this alone." Luffy nodded, the warmth of her touch and the sincerity in her words soothing the raw edges of his fear. "I know, but the thought of losing any of you, it's something I can't stand." Zoro said it's okay to share these fears, that it's part of being a family. "And he's right," Hancock affirmed, her voice steady. "Sharing your fears with me doesn't make you weak. It makes us stronger, as a team and as a family. We face everything together, remember?" A smile tugged at the corners of Luffy's lips, the darkness of his thoughts gradually dispelled by his wife's reassurance. "Yeah, I remember. It's just hard sometimes, you know, but talking to you helps, it really does." Hancock smiled, pulling him to a comforting embrace. "Whenever you need to talk, I'm here." Eventually, sleep reclaimed them, their fears set aside for the moment, comforted by the presence of each other. The night's revelations had not only eased Luffy's troubled mind but had also brought them closer, their relationship strengthened by their shared vulnerability and trust. As the first light of dawn crept into the room, it found them still in each other's arms, a silent vow between them to face the future together, no matter what challenges it might bring. The unity and support of their extended family, the Straw Hat crew, would be their anchor through whatever storms lay ahead. The morning's gentle light filtered through the curtains, casting a soft glow over the room where Hancock and Luffy lay entwined. The serene silence of Amazon Lily's morning was punctuated only by the distant calls of exotic birds, a natural melody that harmonized with the peaceful atmosphere of their surroundings. Hancock was snuggled close to Luffy, her head resting on his chest, listening to the steady rhythm of his heart, a comforting beat that lulled her into a state of contentedness. Luffy's eyes fluttered open and a warm smile spread across his face as he looked down at Hancock, whose eyes were still closed, a peaceful expression on her face. "Mornin', Hancock," he whispered, his voice low and filled with affection. He gently rubbed her back as he stared at her like he was mesmerized by her. Hancock's eyes opened slowly, meeting Luffy's gaze with a sleepy smile. "Good morning, Luffy," she replied, her voice soft. The tranquility of the morning made her heart feel full, a sensation that was only amplified by Luffy's presence beside her. "Did you sleep well?" she asked, her hand tracing idle patterns on his chest. "I always sleep better when I'm here," Luffy said, his smile growing even broader. He shifted to prop himself up on an elbow, gazing down at her as she settled next to him. "What do you say we hang out today? Just the two of us. I want to spend time together before my crew comes back to get me." Hancock's eyes lit up at the suggestion. "That sounds wonderful," she replied, her voice brimming with excitement. "It feels like ages since we've enjoyed a day just for us, especially with your constant adventures. But then again," she added with a smile, "that's the life I signed up for when I married the Pirate King, isn't it?" Luffy nodded in agreement, then added, "Can we get breakfast first? I'm starving." He started to get up until Hancock gently held his arm to stop him. "Wait, Luffy," Hancock began, wanting this moment by Luffy's side to last a little longer. "Can we just stay like this for a few more minutes?" she asked, a hint of shyness in her voice. "Hold me a little longer?" Luffy, initially puzzled by the request when adventures and breakfast awaited, saw the desire in her eyes and knew he couldn't deny her anything. "Sure, Hancock," he agreed, his voice cheerful but filled with some confusion. "But don't forget, I still want to go eat breakfast." Hancock chuckled softly at his comment, snuggling close to him once again, seeking the warmth and comfort of his arms. "Just a few more minutes," she repeated, resting her head against his chest, her arms tightening around him. Luffy, though bemused, wrapped his arms more securely around her, a contented sigh escaping him as he relaxed back into the pillow. This simple request to hold her a little longer, and his easy acquiescence, spoke volumes of their relationship. Eventually, the sounds from the inhabitants of Amazon Lily beginning to start their morning came in through the window of Hancock and Luffy's shared room. It was then that Hancock stirred once again, her thoughts now drifting towards their daughter as the warmth of her husband's embrace continued to envelop her. Maybe Mari and Sonia can look after Lucy today. However, convincing her to spend a day away from her favorite person might be a challenge, she said with a knowing glance towards Luffy. Luffy chuckled, his laughter echoing the room. Yeah, you two don't like to be away from me for too long. Before Hancock could respond, Luffy continued, oh well, I think she'll have a great time with your sisters. His eyes gleamed with excitement at the thought of spending a day exploring Amazon Lily, just him and Hancock, away from all responsibilities. At Luffy's casual statements, and the enthusiasm in his eyes, a wave of affection washed over Hancock. Instead of words, she acted on a heartfelt impulse, leaning to press a gentle, meaningful kiss to Luffy's lips. The spontaneity of the gesture surprised Luffy, his eyes widening in slight shock before he relaxed, returning the kiss with a warmth that spoke volumes of his deep feelings for her. As they parted, Luffy's expression was one of slight astonishment mixed with a smile. What was that for? He asked, though the contentedness in his voice made it clear he wasn't really looking for an answer. Hancock, feeling a flush of warmth at her own boldness, simply smiled back. Sometimes, words aren't enough to express what I feel, she said, her voice soft. Now, let's go check out our little girl. After getting ready for their day, they quietly stepped into Lucy's room, the morning light casting a serene glow over their daughter's peaceful sleep. Lucy, at 4 years old, lay nestled among her blankets, her chest rising and falling rhythmically with each breath, a faint smile gracing her features. Hancock caressed her daughter's cheek with the softest touch, a gesture filled with love and tenderness. Luffy bent down and placed a tender kiss on Lucy's forehead, his actions showing the boundless affection he held for his little one. After a moment, Hancock whispered, she looks just like an angel when she sleeps, doesn't she? Luffy nodded, a soft smile on his lips. Yeah, she does. Just like her mom, he replied, his voice quiet. Hancock felt a warmth spread through her at Luffy's words, a slight flush coloring her cheeks. Thank you, Luffy, she whispered back, her voice filled with happiness and a hint of bashfulness. Let's let her sleep a bit more. It will give us a bit more time to ourselves before the day truly begins. Luffy's smile widened at Hancock's suggestion, his arm naturally finding its way around her waist as they quietly made their way out of Lucy's room. Sounds great to me. As they stepped into the hallway, closing Lucy's door softly behind them, Hancock leaned slightly into Luffy's embrace, her heart light with the joy of their shared morning. What should we do first? She asked, her voice still soft, not wanting to disturb the peaceful silence of their home. Luffy turned towards Hancock with his characteristic grin. Breakfast? I'm really hungry, he announced, punctuating his statement with a timely growl from his stomach. I'll prepare something special for you, Hancock said, her spirit uplifted by her husband's excitement. Together, they walked towards the kitchen ready to enjoy the tranquility and happiness of their day ahead, a rare respite in their adventurous lives. Soon after her parents had finished their breakfast and went on their way to enjoy their quiet morning together, Lucy woke up. With boundless energy, she hopped out of bed, her small feet carrying her swiftly towards her parents' room. Upon finding their room empty, a frown tugged at Lucy's lips. The room felt unusually quiet, the usually vibrant atmosphere dimmed without her father's laughter and mother's chatter filling the space. With a small sigh, she turned on her heel, deciding her next stop would be to find her beloved aunts, Mari and Sonia, hoping for their company or at least a clue to her parents' whereabouts. Her journey through the palace was a short one, filled with the greetings of the Kuja warriors who were always charmed by the young princess's presence. Yet, when she inquired about her aunts, the news wasn't what she hoped. Princess Lucy, one of the warriors, knelt to her level, her expression gentle. Marigold and Sandersonia are assisting with some matters in the village. They should be back later today. The disappointment settled heavier in Lucy's heart with this news, her small shoulders slumping. The palace, usually a place of endless fascination and joy, seemed too vast and lonely without her family. As Lucy wandered, her path took her towards the lush gardens of the palace, A place teeming with life and beauty but lacking the companionship she sought. That was until she spotted Elder Nyan. The elderly woman was tending to some flowers, her hands gentle and assured as she nurtured the blooms. "Grandma." Lucy's voice broke through the morning stillness, her previous disappointment giving way to externed, her face lighting up with a warm smile upon seeing Lucy. "Lucy, my dear, what brings you here so early?" Elder Nyan asked, opening her arms for a hug, which Lucy eagerly accepted. "I couldn't find Mommy and Daddy, or Aunt Mari and Aunt Sonia," Lucy explained, her voice hinting at her earlier sadness. Elder Nyan patted her back soothingly. "Well, you found me, princess. How about we spend some time together? I could use help with these flowers, and later, we can perhaps find a nice story to read." Lucy's disappointment began to fade, replaced by the prospect of a new adventure. "Okay, Grandma, I can help. I want to make the flowers pretty like Mama." As Lucy carefully placed small blossoms into a basket, her brow furrowed in concentration, Elder Nyan watched her with a smile. The quiet of the morning was broken only by the soft rustle of leaves and the occasional chirp of a bird. It was during these moments of peaceful activity that Lucy's curiosity bubbled to the surface. "Grandma," Lucy began, looking up from her task, "why doesn't Mommy let me go with her on the ship? I'm a Kuja warrior too." Her question was innocent but filled with the weight of a child's longing for adventure and inclusion. Elder Nyan set aside her gardening tools and met Lucy's gaze. "Being a Kuja warrior is about more than just adventure. Your mother and father have many responsibilities and enemies, and because of that, they want to keep you safe. The sea is a vast place filled with wonders, but also dangers." Lucy listened intently, her earlier enthusiasm dimming slightly as she absorbed Nyan's words. "But I can be strong too, and then I can keep Mommy safe just like Daddy," she protested softly, a hint of resolve in her young voice. Elder Nyan smiled gently, lifting Lucy's chin with her hand. "I have no doubt you will be, Lucy, but for now, your adventure is here. Learning and growing on Amazon Lily. There's so much to learn about our ways, our strengths, and about being a ruler. Your time will come, and when it does, you'll be ready to face whatever comes your way, just like your mother." Lucy pondered Nyan's words, still not fully grasping what she was told. "Okay, Grandma. I'll be the best Kuja warrior, and then Mommy will see that I can go with her." Elder Nyan hugged Lucy tightly as she laughed. "I have no doubt you will, little princess. Now, let's get these flowers ready. They won't plant themselves, will they?" As the morning sun climbed higher in the sky, casting a golden glow over the garden, Elder Nyan couldn't help but feel a deep sense of hope for Lucy's future, knowing that the young princess would indeed grow to be a remarkable Kuja warrior and empress in her own right. After a morning of diligent work with the flowers, Lucy's small stomach began to grumble, a clear sign that it was time for a break. "Grandma, can we get something to eat? I'm really hungry," she asked, her hands instinctively going to her belly. Elder Nyan glanced down at Lucy, noting the dirt that covered her clothes and hands from their gardening. "Of course, my dear, but first, let's get you cleaned up. We can't have the princess of Amazon Lily looking like she's been playing in the mud," she said, her tone light and teasing. Lucy nodded in agreement, her eyes lighting up at the mention of a bath. "Oh, after my bath, can I wear one of Mommy's dresses? I want to look just like Mama," she declared, her determination evident. Nyan couldn't help but chuckle at Lucy's request. The image of the little princess attempting to parade around in an oversized dress of Hancock's as she led Lucy towards the bath. "How about we find something a bit more your size? I bet you have a dress that's just as beautiful as your mother's dresses," she suggested. Lucy's eyes sparkled with enthusiasm as she pictured herself looking just like her mother. "It has to be a really special dress, just like Mommy." "It will be as special as you are, Lucy," Nyan assured her, helping the young girl into the bath. "We'll make sure of it." The bath time flew by with more laughter and playful plans for their dress hunt. Nyan was reminded once again of the unique joy that Lucy brought into their lives. Her spirit a delightful blend of her parents' best qualities, even in something as simple as choosing what to wear. Once Lucy was all clean and wrapped in a fluffy towel, Nyan took Lucy's hand and led her back to her room, where they were now on the hunt for the perfect dress. As they entered the room, Lucy made a beeline for her wardrobe, her eyes scanning the contents with a seriousness that mirrored her mother's. Then, with excitement, She pulled out a purple dress filled with the Kuja pirate's Jolly Roger. It was similar to one of Hancock's dresses, albeit sized for a much smaller princess. "This one, Grandma, it looks just like Mama's," Lucy exclaimed. Nyan couldn't help but agree. "That's a perfect choice, little one. Everyone will know you are the princess of Amazon Lily," she affirmed, her voice filled with pride. Lucy's next addition to her outfit was a miniature version of the straw hat her father wore. Despite the clear mismatch with the dress, Lucy's determination to wear it was unwavering. "I want to wear Daddy's hat too," she declared, placing it on top her damp hair with a grin that mirrored her father's own. The outfit did not match, but it was adorable. Lucy, in her regal purple dress, topped with the iconic straw hat. Nyan couldn't contain her smile. "Well, that's quite the combination. Your parents would be proud," she said, her amusement clear. Lucy beamed, twirling in her dress, the straw hat slightly askew but worn with undeniable pride. "I'm like Mama and Daddy now," she proclaimed. Nyan adjusted the hat to make sure it sat just right atop the princess's head. "You certainly are, Lucy," she replied. Now dressed in her unique ensemble, Lucy and Nyan began their walk to lunch. Throughout their journey, Lucy was unusually quiet, her small hand gripping Nyan's as she was lost in thought. As they entered the dining area, the aroma of delicious foods filled the air, a familiar scent that usually brought a smile to Lucy's face. However, today, her mind was elsewhere, tangled in thoughts and questions that needed answers. She looked up at Nyan, her eyes reflecting the seriousness of her inquiry. "Grandma, why does Daddy have to be away so much? Why can't he stay with me and Mommy?" she asked, her voice carrying a mix of longing and confusion. Nyan paused, considering her words carefully. "Your father travels for many reasons," she began. "It's not that he wants to be away from you. He's looking for adventure while also doing what he can to protect you and your mother. There are also people out there in this world that need him, like his crew." Lucy listened intently, but her brow furrowed, indicating her struggle to fully understand. "But I need him too," she said quietly, the simplicity of her statement underlining the complexity of her feelings. Nyan pulled Lucy into a gentle embrace. "I know you do, my dear, and he knows it too. Your father loves you and your mother more than you know." Lucy wrapped her small arms around Nyan. "I don't want him to leave again. I want him to stay here." "Well, when he does leave, you know he's thinking of you, and when he comes back, he has so many stories to tell you." Nyan reassured her, offering a smile that held a promise. "Maybe one day, you'll join him and have adventures of your own." Lucy's expression brightened at the thought, a spark of her usual spirited self returning. "I'm going to be the best, just like Daddy." Nyan smiled at Lucy's resilience. "That's my girl. Now, let's eat some of this delicious food." As elder Nyan and Lucy settled down for a lunch filled with a variety of delicious foods from Amazon Lily, Lucy continued to pepper Nyan with more questions between bites. "Why does Daddy have to be the Pirate King, Grandma?" Lucy asked, her eyes wide as she took another bite of her fruit. Elder Nyan smiled gently, pausing to choose her words carefully. "Your father became the king 'cause he wanted to be freest on the seas, my dear. It also means he's very brave and strong." Lucy, considering this, tilted her head thoughtfully. "Can I be a pirate queen then? Like Daddy is the Pirate King?" "Of course, you can dream and be anything you want, Lucy," Nyan encouraged, her smile growing at Lucy's understanding. "Grandma, how did Mama meet Daddy? Was it an adventure?" Lucy's questions showed no sign of slowing, her interest in her parents' tale evident. Elder Nyan paused, considering how best to weave the story in a light that would captivate yet not upset the young princess. "Oh, it was quite the adventure, Lucy. Your mother and father fought when they first met," she began, capturing Lucy's full attention. "Your father landed on Amazon Lily, and instead of being afraid of this new place, he stood up for what he believed in, even in front of your mother." Lucy's eyes widened in wonder. "Daddy fought Mama?" Nyan chuckled softly. "Yes, but we'll say it was more like a disagreement. You see, during let's call it a discussion, your father did something very brave. He protected your Aunt Sonia's secret by covering her back." Lucy leaned in closer, her food momentarily forgotten. "Like Mommy's secret mark on her back?" "Just like your mother's secret mark," Nyan explained. Your father, not fully understanding the secrecy that surrounds that mark, still chose to protect it. That's when your mother saw how different he was from anyone she'd ever met. Is that why Mama loves Daddy? Lucy asked, piecing the story together in her mind. That's one of the reasons, yes, Nyan agreed, her eyes twinkling. Your mother saw in your father a kind-hearted and courageous man. It was the beginning of a great adventure for them both, leading to where we are today. Their conversation continued, Nyan skillfully navigating the young girl's inquiries, ensuring that the tales of her parents' past were both inspiring and age-appropriate. Lucy's imagination flourished under Nyan's guidance, her young mind filled with images of her parents' adventures and the love that grew between them. A love that eventually led to her being here, a cherished daughter of the King of the Pirates and the Empress of Amazon Lily. As their meal concluded and their conversation finished, Lucy's restlessness began to resurface. Despite Elder Nyan's comforting presence and the engaging tales, Lucy's desire to see her parents overwhelmed her patience. I need to find Mommy and Daddy now, Lucy declared, suddenly springing from her seat with determination. Before Nyan could react, Lucy was already dashing towards the palace's grand entrance, her small feet carrying her swiftly across the marble floors as she dodged other Kuja. Nyan called out, Lucy, wait, but the young princess was too quick, her heart set on finding her parents. Just as Lucy reached the palace's threshold, her aunts, Mari and Sonia, appeared, returning from their duties around the island. Sonia, spotting her niece's determined escape, acted swiftly. With ease, she scooped Lucy up into her arms, effectively halting her attempt to run. Where do you think you're going, young lady? Sonia asked, her tone firm but filled with amusement at Lucy's spirited attempt. I want to see Mommy and Daddy, Lucy protested, her voice full of determination. Sonia exchanged a glance with Mari before turning back to the palace, carrying Lucy with her. Let's take you back to Elder Nyan. Your parents will be back soon, I promise. As Sonia carried Lucy back towards Elder Nyan, Lucy's resolve did not waver. If anything, it strengthened. With every step her aunt took, Lucy renewed her pleas, her voice a blend of earnestness and frustration. Please, Auntie Sonia, let me go, she implored, squirming in an attempt to free herself from Sonia's secure hold. Mari, walking alongside them, couldn't help but smile at Lucy's tenacity. Lucy, your parents are having a little time to themselves, but they'll be so happy to see you when they get back. Why don't we do something fun while we wait? She suggested, trying to distract her niece with the promise of an activity. But Lucy was not to be swayed. No, Auntie Mari. I miss them. I just need to see them, she said, the edge of tears in her voice hinting at the depth of her longing. Sonia, feeling a tug at her heartstrings at Lucy's distress, paused to look in her niece's eyes. Lucy, she said gently, we understand you miss your parents, but they asked us to take care of you, and that's what we're going to do. How about we compromise? If they're not back after your nap, we'll go look for them together. How does that sound? Lucy, her initial resolve softening at her aunt's gentle tone, considered the offer. The promise of a collective search seemed to offer some solace. Okay, she finally agreed, albeit reluctantly. But you have to promise we'll really go look for them. We promise, Sonia assured her, offering a warm smile that mirrored Mary's. With the agreement reached, they continued their walk back to Elder Nyan. As the early afternoon sun cast a warm, golden light over Amazon Lily, a quiet hush enveloped the palace. It was time for the young princess to nap, but thoughts of her parents and their adventures made sleep a distant prospect. Her room, usually a comforting haven, felt empty and vast without her family's presence. Motivated by a yearning she couldn't ignore, Lucy decided to take action. With a quiet determination, she tiptoed out of her room, her small feet carrying her silently through the palace's corridors. Her heart was set on one destination, her parents' room. As Lucy stepped into her parents' room, she was greeted by the comforting scent of her mother's perfume. Meanwhile, Salome, Hancock's loyal serpent companion, slithered gracefully towards her, her large eyes observing her with an almost knowing glance. Salome, do you think Zephyra and Patches are having fun exploring without me? Lucy questioned, sitting down on the floor, her voice filled with curiosity. The young girl often spoke to Salome as if the snake could understand every word, a testament to their unique friendship. In response, Salome hissed softly, a gentle sound that Lucy had come to recognize as agreement. "They're brave, just like Mommy and Daddy," Lucy continued, her imagination painting vivid pictures of her own companions exploring the lush jungles of the island. "I asked them to find the biggest flower ever for Mama. Do you think they'll find it?" This time, Salome did more than just hiss softly. The serpent gently nudged a small, beautifully illustrated book towards Lucy. A book of Amazon lilies flora that Lucy often looked at. It was Salome's way of engaging with Lucy's question. Lucy's eyes lit up with excitement as she flipped through the pages, her fingers tracing the drawings of the exotic flowers. "Do you think this is the biggest one?" she asked, looking up at the snake with her big blue eyes. Salome tilted her head, as if contemplating the question. Noticing the young princess's eyes beginning to get heavy with sleep as she looked through the book, the snake eventually coiled beneath her feet, lifting her gently onto the mattress. Once settled under the blankets, Lucy wrapped her arms around a pillow, pretending it was her mother's hug. Salome, understanding her little friend's need for comfort, curled up beside her, a guardian in the absence of her parents. Lucy, feeling the familiar scales against her side, turned to snuggle closer to Salome. "Thank you, Salome," Lucy whispered, her voice beginning to sound tired. "You're my big, cuddly teddy bear." Salome's gentle hiss was the last thing Lucy heard before she drifted off to sleep, which was filled with dreams where she, Salome, Zephyra, and Patches embarked on fun adventures across the island. Lucy stirred from her sleep to the quiet of the continued absence of her parents. With a determination and Salome's help, Lucy slid off the bed and turned to face her mother's companion. "I'll find them myself," Lucy decided as she adjusted her straw hat on her heel. She set off in search of her aunts, her small feet carrying her through the palace corridors. It didn't take long for Lucy to find Nyan, Mari, and Sonia gathered in the courtyard, the three of them discussing the evening's plans. Upon seeing the young princess, their conversation paused as she approached them with a seriousness that was almost comical given her ensemble. "Grandma, Aunt Mari, Aunt Sonia, I want to go on an adventure to find Mommy and Daddy," Lucy announced, her chest puffed out to try to showcase how brave she is. "We need to find them cause they could be fighting a big monster," she exclaimed, trying to create some urgency so she can see her parents. The three women exchanged glances, a mix of amusement and affection in their eyes. "Is that so?" Nyan replied, her voice gentle. "Well, then, let's see if we can save your parents." Their adventure took them through the lush gardens of Amazon Lily, with Lucy leading the way. "Grandma, aunties, look at me," Lucy exclaimed, bursting with excitement. Mimicking a move she had seen her father perform, she braced herself. "Gum Gum Rocket," she cried out, attempting to propel herself forward with the same vigor as Luffy, her arms stretched out in front of her as if she could stretch and soar through the air just like her dad. Nyan, Sonia, and Mari couldn't help but let out chuckles at Lucy's enthusiastic imitation. Her spirit and determination were undeniable, echoing the traits of both her parents. "Very impressive, Lucy," Mari exclaimed, her laughter light and encouraging. "You got your dad's moves down." But Lucy wasn't finished yet. She was on a mission to showcase all she had learned from watching her parents during their training. Turning her attention to a small bird perched nearby, she struck a dramatic pose, much like her mother's, and pointed at it dramatically. "I will defeat you, evil bird," Lucy declared with the utmost seriousness, hoping to mimic her mother's abilities. Love beam." The bird, unfazed and perhaps a bit confused, simply cocked its head at Lucy before flitting away. The sight was so earnest and adorable that Nyan, Sonia, and Mari burst into a fresh round of laughter. "Oh, Lucy, you're going to be just as formidable as your mother one day," Nyan said through her chuckles, wiping away a tear of amusement. Lucy, undeterred by the bird's departure, spun around to face her audience, her little chest puffed out once again. "I'm going to practice until I get it right," she proclaimed, her determination shining bright in her eyes. Sonia stepped forward, kneeling to be at eye level with Lucy. "I have no doubt that you'll get it right, little warrior." As they continued their search across the island, Lucy's enthusiasm never waned. She practiced her parents' moves, each attempt filled with the boundless energy and determination that mirrored that of her father. "Gum Gum Gatling," she would shout, moving her arms to punch tall grass as if she was mimicking her father. Finally, their search led them to a secluded part of the beach, where Hancock and Luffy were enjoying a moment of peace. Spotting her parents from a distance, Lucy's face lit up with a joy so pure it outshone the sun. Without hesitation, she took a deep breath and launched herself forward with a spirited gum-gum rocket. Her sudden shout startled Hancock and Luffy, pulling them from their tranquil moment. As they turned to see their daughter sprinting towards them with arms outstretched, any surprise they felt melted into warmth and amusement. Hancock opened her arms just in time as Lucy leapt, her little body propelled by nothing but her own youthful energy. "I flew, Mommy," Lucy exclaimed as she landed safely in Hancock's embrace, her laughter infectious. Luffy couldn't contain his laughter, the sound booming across the beach. "You sure did, Luce, that was awesome," he stated, his eyes twinkling with pride. Hancock enveloped Lucy in a tight embrace. "My brave little warrior princess," she murmured, showering Lucy's face with gentle kisses, eliciting a beaming smile and giggles from the young girl. Sonia and Mari drew closer, their own smiles mirroring the happiness of the moment. While the family basked in the glow of the setting sun, Elder Nyan couldn't help but remark, "It's truly remarkable. Who would have thought that the fierce Empress of Amazon Lily would become such a doting mother? Hancock, you've really softened." Hancock's eyes flicked towards Nyan, a serious glint in her gaze. Before she could retort, Lucy's enthusiastic voice captured her attention. "Mommy, Daddy, can we go have dinner now? I'm hungry." Her excitement was palpable, her earlier adventures having fueled her appetite. Luffy smiled and effortlessly lifted Lucy onto his shoulders, securing her with his hands. "You heard the princess, it's time for dinner," he declared. With Lucy now secure on his shoulders, Luffy grabbed Hancock's hand, and together, they made their way back to the palace. Hancock smiled, the comment about her softened nature forgotten in the joy of the moment. She followed Luffy, with Lucy perched high above, her laughter ringing clear and bright as they made their way back to the palace. Sonia and Mari exchanged amused looks before joining Nyan in following the family, their steps light and hearts full. The palace dining hall welcomed them back. As they settled around the table, Lucy, now sitting on her father's lap, was the center of attention, her excitement evident. She launched into tales of her adventures, animatedly describing each attempt to mimic her parents' powers, from her spirited gum-gum attacks to her dramatic love beam directed at an evil and unsuspecting bird. The family listened with undivided attention, their laughter mingling with Lucy's excited recounting. Luffy and Hancock exchanged amused glances, their pride in their daughter's spirit and imagination growing with every word. "Well, it sounds like you've had quite the busy day," Hancock remarked, her tone making Lucy more eager to share. As the final plates were cleared and the warm glow of the dining hall began to dim, Lucy was still full of energy, making it clear she did not want to get ready for bed. "Can we go look at the stars?" she asked, her voice filled with hope and curiosity. Luffy's response was immediate as it was enthusiastic. "Stargazing? That sounds awesome. I wonder what kind of shapes we'll see," he exclaimed, his childlike outlook matching his daughter's. With a nod of agreement from Hancock, the family made their way to the beach, a gentle breeze escorting them under the tapestry of stars. Hancock spread out a large blanket on the soft sand, creating a cozy space for them to lie down and gaze upward. Lucy snuggled up between her parents on the blanket, her head tilted back to look at the vast expanse above them. The stars twinkled like diamonds against the night sky, each cluster of stars taking on a different shape, causing Lucy's imagination to run wild. Hancock began to point out constellations, her finger tracing the invisible lines between stars to show images of warriors, animals, and gods. "See that cluster, sweetheart? That looks like Zephyr and Salome," she said softly to Lucy. Lucy absorbed every tale and constellation with wide-eyed wonder, following her mother's finger that seemed to trace the night sky. Every so often, she'd extend her own hand toward a twinkling light. "What about that one?" she'd ask, or, "Does that one have a story, Mama?" Hancock and Luffy alternated their responses. Luffy responded with whimsical stories and adventures, his imagination painting vivid pictures for his daughter's equally creative imagination. Meanwhile, Hancock would gently interject with strands of truth and knowledge, helping to make the story both enlightening and enchanting. Not long after, Lucy's energy began to wane, her questions slowing, her eyes, now heavy with sleep, blinked more slowly, the effort to keep them open becoming too great. Quietly, she snuggled closer to Luffy, seeking the comfort and warmth of her father. Around her, pulling her in gently to make sure she's comfortable. Hancock watched the cute scene, a smile gracing her lips at the sight of their daughter finding solace in her father's embrace. However, the warmth of the moment was fleeting with the thought of Luffy's imminent departure in the morning. Luffy, surprisingly, caught the subtle change in her expression. The smile that didn't quite reach her eyes and the slight tightening of her shoulders. He reached out, taking his wife's hand in his. "Hancock, don't worry, you know I always come back to both of you," he said, his voice quiet as to not wake Lucy. Hancock met his gaze, the unspoken fears and wishes in her eyes evident. "I know," she replied, her voice a whisper. "But it doesn't make the waiting any easier. We miss you when you leave. I miss you." Luffy squeezed her hand. "I know," he acknowledged, his heart feeling heavy with the weight of his dual responsibility. His family and his crew. "But one day we can sail together as a family." For a few more moments, they remained under the canopy of stars, then, with Lucy cradled carefully in his arms, Luffy stood with Hancock by his side as they made their way back to the palace. As they gently tucked Lucy into her bed and turned to leave, the lack of warmth from her parents' embrace caused Lucy to wake. Her eyes quickly opened, seeing the figures of her parents quietly heading towards the door. The reality of her father's departure the next morning suddenly came into sharp focus. "Daddy, do you have to leave?" Lucy's voice sounded small as her question hung in the air. Luffy knelt beside the bed, his smile gentle but his eyes reflecting the complexity of his emotions. "Yeah, Luce. I have to, but I'll be back before you know it," he reassured her. Luce's lower lip quivered, her once brave front faltering at the thought of her dad leaving once again. "Can I stay with you and Mommy tonight?" she asked, a hopeful glance darting between her parents. Hancock exchanged a look with Luffy before turning her attention back to their daughter. "Of course, you can," Hancock answered, the warmth in her voice evident. Without hesitation, Luffy scooped up Lucy from her bed and headed to his room with Hancock close beside him. Once inside their room, Luffy carefully placed Lucy in the center of their bed. Lucy, still trying to fight sleep, instinctively reached for Hancock as she settled beside her daughter. As Luffy stepped away to get ready for bed, Lucy turned in her mother's embrace, her eyes shimmering with unshed tears. "I don't want Daddy to go," she confessed, her voice both tired and quiet. Hancock held Lucy closer, her own heart aching with understanding. "I know, my love, I know," Hancock whispered back, her lips pressing a gentle kiss to the top of Lucy's head. "I don't want your father to leave either, but he always comes back to us. He promised us he would." Luffy, returning to find his wife and daughter in a sweet moment, felt a hint of sadness wash over him as he thought about having to leave them. However, seeing them together, he was reminded of what he gets to come home to, which made him smile. Luffy slid into the bed beside Hancock and Lucy, wrapping his strong arms around them both. He watched Lucy's eyelids flutter closed, her breaths deepening as she finally fell asleep once again. "I'm going to miss this," Luffy murmured to himself, his voice filled with the weight of his emotions. "I'll miss both of you." Hancock reached out, her hand finding Luffy's, their fingers intertwining. "And we'll miss you too," she replied, her voice steady despite the emotions swirling within her. "But we'll be here, waiting for your return." As Lucy slept soundly, Luffy and Hancock allowed themselves a moment to dream of days when goodbyes wouldn't be necessary, when their adventures would be shared side by side without fearing for their family's safety. Hancock moved closer to Luffy, her head resting against his chest, listening to the steady beat of his heart. Luffy, his arms securely around his family, felt a peace settle over him, a rare feeling that only Hancock and Lucy could bring. Lucy, safe in her parents' embrace, smiled in her sleep, her dreams filled with the adventures of the day along with the comforting presence of her mom and dad by her side. Not long after, Hancock felt the exhaustion catch up with her as she finally gave into sleep. Gently, Luffy kissed Hancock's head, watching her and their daughter sleep peacefully. "I love you. Both of you," he whispered quietly. The quiet of the night and the soft sound of their breathing helped Luffy feel calm. Finally, he fell asleep, already dreaming of the day he'd come back to them.